Good afternoon. Welcome to the M Word. My name is Lavinia and I'm joined with Yasmin today. We are going to be talking about sleep, and I've been a little bit behind schedule, so I'm afraid I haven't got as many banners as I would like. To apologise. However, we know that sleep is quite a big issue for many of our families, and I suppose what I wanted to start by thinking about is that we have a phrase that is often bandied about by professionals of good sleep hygiene. And the difficulty we have with this is that it makes parents feel quite guilty for what they are having to contend with. And it kind of arose last week again with some of my clients, in that parents felt under considerable pressure to insist that their children would go up to bed, and they would insist that their children slept in their bedroom alone, and they would insist that their children would have to settle on their own. And one of the difficulties we have is that very much a lot of our young people really struggle with this. Now, Yasmin is not that far away from her childhood, so I thought, could we start by just you telling us what it was like for you as a young child and sleep? What kind of things went on for you, and what kind of things did you need that kind of helped?
I liked sleep when I wasn't told to do it. When I was told to sleep, I didn't want to, because, like, you know, why should I have to do that? I even remember, I think when I was about 6 or 7 and you sent me to bed during the summer, and I went, it's still light outside, I should be allowed to stay up. And you were like, no, it's 8 o'clock, you've got to go to bed. I thought I was so smart by going, she's trying to pull the wool over my eyes, it's still light outside. But, you know, I think all through my childhood we kind of used soft music, really, because I don't like silences, and it's very hard, especially when you're younger, to go from other people being around you making noises to suddenly like, oh, I'm all by myself. You know?
Yeah, it's not easy, is it? Because I mean, I know that one of the things that I sometimes had to do with you is to sit with you for quite a while. But invariably, we always had a bit of a routine. Do you remember what it was like when you were really young? Do you remember what that routine was?
No.
Okay, so when you were really little, obviously in your first cot, you had a mobile that was above your head and it used to play music. And then when you became a little bit bigger and you were in a sort of small bed, as it were, what we found is that we would put little stars up above your head on the ceiling, but also we'd have soft lighting, and we had fun characters around your room. So whether it was in a roll that divided the wall, as it were, they were all of the theme of Winnie the Pooh. You remember any of that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. And we had a lot of audio stories after I'd finished reading with you. Do you remember any of that?
Yes, but I don't want to admit that they were cassette tapes, because I'm not that old yet, okay? I'm not. So, yes, I do. I remember having a pencil in them to wind them up when I broke them, but we're not going to go that far.
And did you think that they were helpful? Did you become quite dependent on them quite quickly, do you think?
I think as an autistic person, I do like routines, and sometimes, for example, you were working late or you just weren't in the mood to do something, so I could rely on those, that even if, like, say I had a babysitter over or something, I still had something that was very structured and it was the same. And, you know, because it was a cassette, the readings were always the same. It wasn't like somebody else doing it, so it didn't kind of throw me off.
Yeah.
But I also remember having that circus projector light.
Yes.
And that was quite, I got really upset when that kind of died its death, but then again, it's getting old, so it's not much I can do about it. But yeah. I think we moved on to lava lamps after that.
What
But
happened
yeah,
to the lava lamp, Yasmin?
I burnt myself.
Despite me saying what?
Don't touch the light bulb, it's gonna be hot. Yeah.
So then what happened to the lava lamp?
I didn't like it anymore.
We had to remove it. It was a bit of a health hazard.
Yeah, I don't even know why I think the light bulb broke and I needed to replace it, but obviously I hadn't quite figured out yet that lights, when they've been on for a while, are made of glass, so turn very hot. But
Yeah.
I found out it's very easy. I've never done it again.
So with having a soft light in your room, is that because you felt you couldn't sleep in the dark? Because some
Absolutely,
children,
dark.
what is it that bothers you about being in the dark then? Do you remember?
I don't like the feeling of vulnerability. I still don't like it. I still have to sleep with lights on, which might annoy some people, but I think the thing is, I worry that people can see me, but I can't see them, and I can't relax and fall asleep thinking, oh my God, somebody's watching me. And I remember when I was younger, it was very easy for my mind to kind of play tricks on me and go, oh my God, that pile of clothes over there is somebody standing over my bed. Oh my God. So I think that kind of light was kind of like a safety blanket. I wasn't emotionally attached to like toys or something that were comforting in my sleep. So I think light was something that was safety. I could see people approaching me, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it takes away that feeling of I'm in a very vulnerable situation. Yeah, it kind of just protects you a little bit, doesn't it? I mean, you sleep in the dark, and it freaks me out when I walk past your room, and it's like, there's no lights on. How is she dealing with that?
Technically, I don't, because I have the door open with a lamp on outside. So that's the best that I can do, other than having a lamp on in my room. And obviously, if I have a lamp on my room, it's too much, even though, I can't sleep without it. So it's still there. But that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because I had that experience when I was a child. My parents insisted there was nothing scary, don't be ridiculous, just get on with it and go to sleep. But they also were quite insistent, it's our time now, it's time for you to go to bed, you need to be in bed by whatever time it was. And like you, I thought I was being fooled, particularly in the summer months. And even worse, I remember being 10 years old and looking out of my bedroom window, and I could see my best friend was playing with her sister across the road. And I was thinking, how ridiculously unfair is this? Because, they don't have to go to bed, and it's obviously way too early. I've been duped. You learn a lot more, don't you, as an adult, when you begin to realize that you have summer evenings. But nevertheless, there was that expectation for my parents to say, you don't need me to come up, you need to just get on and do it yourself. Now, I don't think my parenting was particularly good, but I also know from my many, many families that a lot of parents are exhausted by the end of a working day and have somehow got to limp through the routines of getting children fed, watered, ready for bed, bathed and whatnot. And then if we have an autistic child who's really struggling, like you were, with the understanding of, I don't feel safe, I feel vulnerable, then what do we do? And of course, it takes a lot longer. And I also know that I have a kind of like a divide, really. I have a lot of families who are willing to either work as a tag team, in other words, the parents take it in turns, or one parent over the other tends to be the one sort of staying in the room. And it is very interesting seeing how those children cope compared to the ones who are expected to kind of just get on with it. They don't cope as well. Now, I know from your experiences that you struggled when you were not staying with me to have the experiences of struggling with dark, struggling with sleepovers, struggling with all of that. What do you think that was about then?
So when it was like sleepovers with friends, they'd could sleep in the dark. I'd be sat there going, oh, so they're asleep. snoring away, and I'm sat there going, oh my God, I can't close my eyes because something's going to happen. First of all, it wasn't a room that I was familiar with, but then to be in darkness all of a sudden, it's like, really struggled with that. And
so it needs to be a familiar room then.
Well, not even that. I think it's just, if it's not familiar, even then, I kind of need a light on, but it doesn't have to be as bright. But if it's a room that I'm not familiar with, and then suddenly I'm kind of plunged into darkness, it's a bit like, I feel like I'm, something's going to happen at any moment. But I find it interesting that I'm not quite sure if I'm still scared of the dark because I'm genuinely scared of it, or if I'm still scared because of things that happened kind of like in the dark that scared me as a kid. And so I've kind of, but I'm getting slightly better. I only need like very little amounts of light now, but still I have not got to that age yet where it's like, I'm perfectly fine in the dark. I can cry very easily when somebody does something slightly scary in the dark, and it's like, oh, I can't deal with that.
Yeah. Thinking about, obviously, when you were really little, you had this sort of musical mobile, but obviously, as you got a little bit older, we transferred to, lots of different things like the stars in the ceiling, but also audio books, excuse me, and audio music that was very relaxing. I don't know if you remember, there was a CD that did lots of music around the sea and the waves. Do you ever remember that? Yeah. And that was something that you really liked a lot of, but also the interesting little stories by Enid Blyton. I don't know if you remember those as well, as you got a little bit older again, sort of like primary school age. So what would you do now? And, why did you do those things? What is it that you felt you needed? Because although you've identified about the light, clearly there's something else, isn't there?
I mean, I'm not so auditory dependent now. I still do kind of reading before I go to bed, so like escapism more. And I think that's because I find it very hard to just switch my brain off. It's like when I say to you, meditating, don't understand it, because people go, clear your mind, and I'm sat there going, okay, I've cleared my mind, and then I've got TV static in my brain, so it's not really quiet, and I'm going, oh my God. So I find it very hard to kind of go up to bed at night and then go, okay, I've got to be quiet now. So I find that reading or listening to maybe some slightly softer music, kind of my brain starts thinking about that more than everything else that's going on, which kind of is as close to quiet as I can get, so to speak. But I think back then I was an only child, so like I didn't share rooms with people regularly, and obviously I wouldn't say I was a clingy child, but like I did like people's company. So I think having stories or music, it kind of felt like I wasn't as on my own.
So a bit of escapism, I captured that from you, and that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because we know a lot of autistic boys in particular are really into their gaming. So they're the ones that are really keen to hang on to their phones and to carry on doing things. But equally, girls like to kind of go onto social media to kind of use that. Do you think it's all about escapism, or is it more about trying to distract themselves, or what does it feel like for you? Because you've always had that for a very long time.
I mean, sometimes what I was like reading or doing on my phone before I was going to sleep, it kind of jump started dreams for me, so to speak, like, because I wasn't thinking about, oh, I've got homework to do, or oh, I've got to go and do this, or oh, I've forgotten to take something out of the freezer or whatever. Instead I was thinking, oh, I'm putting myself in this situation, and it was getting me out of it. And I was thinking, like, it was kind of a bit like, do you remember the You Choose book in primary school? Where there's no words, you just pick images off the page, and it's kind of like that, plus, you know, with more words and more sentences and complex, you know, language. But it kind of out of body experience of what my normal day life is, and it kind of just jumpstarts soft brain waves and, like, you know, helps me relax and detach from everything else, because otherwise I'll sit there like the whole night thinking.
So when you were really young, sort of when we were doing the routine, because we would never end with a story, we would have a story. I read, you know, I would read to you, but then we would move on to, okay, now you can have a bit of audio books and, you know, another bit of story, and you always had quite a few favorites. And then we would transfer to the music so that you could slowly but surely. Did you feel that that helped you, or did you feel that it was just something nice to listen to? You know, because as you get older, we have to think about what kind of impacts your brain, as it were, from the day. So it's kind of like two-part question, isn't it? It's thinking about when you were really young, did you find that helpful, you know, as a distraction, or it was just something you enjoyed?
I enjoyed it, but I also think it helped because it was kind of like a physical representation of levels of getting more relaxed. So, you know, you reading to me still quite interactive, but we're slowly getting there. And then, you know, audio book where you're not maybe there and I'm just listening to it, and then getting to music where I don't have to focus so much on words or things. It's just kind of tunes or, like, you know, the beat of something. And because I struggled quite a lot with recognizing the signs of how to slowly relax for the night and be able to go to sleep. So I think having those different levels, it was very like, okay, now we go on to this, which is slightly more calmer, until the point where it's like, okay, this is calm, we can go to sleep now, it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So did that stop you? Did that keep you in bed?
No.
What did you do?
Well, it depends. It depends what I was doing that night. Sometimes I'd rearrange my bedroom for no reason. Sometimes I'd go and sit on the stairs. I don't know.
So that tells us that the processing was still taking a while, wasn't it? And that's quite interesting, because I think very much as professionals, we don't give enough credit for the fact that our autistic individuals are trying to process their day. And it does take a lot longer than most people, doesn't it? Like quite a long time. And I knew that there were times when, particularly when I was studying, that I wasn't able to spend as long as I wanted to with you in the bedroom, hence why I was, you know, trying to add in an extra story audio, but then obviously the music. But I'm also very mindful that quite often you would come running into my bedroom. And I'm like, hang on a minute, I thought that bedroom. So can you remember why you did that? What that was about? Because I think a lot of parents don't fully appreciate what's going on for a young person. And we're talking about primary school age, aren't we? We're not talking about secondary.
No. I wouldn't say I remember that time period being full of like nightmares or things that stopped me from falling asleep. Right? So I couldn't 100% pinpoint that's why I needed it, but I think it was the fact that while I don't like pandering, clingy people, I do like having the thought of somebody else's presence near me. Like, you know, I don't mind if somebody's sat in the same room and they're doing their own thing. It's the fact that they're in the same room as me. But if they start trying to, like, you know, hug me all the stuff, and I'm like, oh, go away, mind your own business, stay away from me, you know. I even say it to you now, like, I've got my personal space, and then I've kind of got my flying radiant space where it's kind of like a plane control tower where I've got all these little planes on the radar, and if they come too close to a building, you're going to have an issue. So if somebody comes too close to my space, or the space in kind of just near me, it's too much, and then I get very overwhelmed. But I think because you kind of had your own routine,
Mm-hmm.
I used to remember like army crawling, thinking you wouldn't be able to see me. And I'm thinking at it now, going, you weren't invisible. And I would really slowly creep the door open and go, okay, that made a bit of a loud noise. I can't move now. And then I'd shuffle a bit closer, and you'd turn over, and I'd go, oh no, I've been caught. Like, you know, mission compromised. Oh no. And then you'd continue sleeping. So I was like, okay, I can inch a bit forward. And then literally I'd get in, and you'd go, oh, again. And I was like, yeah, sorry, I'm here now. I'm not going back. Bye. You know.
So that's quite interesting, because you've identified it was the presence needed of another person. Now, some people describe, like I had a client a few months back who just needed to feel their parent breathing over them. That was enough to kind of feel safe. I had another young person who was able to articulate that actually, as long as they could feel a warm body next to them of either mum or dad, they could go to sleep. But without that, they really, really struggled. And that's really quite tricky, because what we've got is a situation that a lot of parents might not appreciate, that in order to feel safe and secure, to get a good night's sleep, they need to have a parent nearby. Well, if you're used to sleeping, as parents generally are, in their own bed, that doesn't really compute, does it?
No.
So, okay, what did we work out? Because it didn't take us long to work out, did it? The process that you needed something with you, and a teddy bear wasn't going to cut it, because you had loads of teddies. In fact, you had a massive teddy. And, you know, quite often it was a wonder how you even got into bed, because they were all around you. And again, that's a very common thing with autistic young people. They need loads of soft toys or soft blankets around them. What did we work out helped you stay in bed a bit more?
Do you mean me kidnapping the dogs for the night?
That would be the one.
Yeah.
So we found quite quickly that you would settle better. It didn't guarantee that you would stay in your bed, but you certainly settled better. And then when we got Dan, your Gordon setter, that was the turning point, I think, for you, because you felt far more able to stay most of the night, if not all of the night, with him, because he was so big. I think he nearly broke your bed, didn't he, when he first jumped on it? But that again is quite powerful, isn't it? Because there was the warm body, there was the breathing, there was a presence for you. And also, if there was anything a bit odd, Dan would growl, which was a rarity, but obviously he would provide that service, as it were. Mm. So did you think your dreams were improved with him being there rather than being negative dreams?
Well, I can't really remember what dreams I would have had back then. I like the occasional ones that kind of were like quite traumatic, or like, you know, I remember the event that happened after them. But I do remember sometimes I would have like, maybe it wasn't like dreams that were super intense, but maybe whatever thought process I'd had before I was trying to go to sleep had been a bit traumatic for me. Like maybe I'd rethought about somebody bullying me the day before, and that had like reduced me to tears. And I think we'd had other dogs at the time, and they were kind of the same size as Dan, but Dan was a very protective energy, you know, and I knew that if anything were to happen to me, he'd go and face the issue, give me time to, you know, get out, whatever. And I think that kind of helped, because again, I think the thing is, when you're trying to sleep, you are at your most vulnerable. And even at a young age, when I didn't really know what vulnerable meant, I know and I could sense that if something were to happen to me, I wouldn't be able to put up much of a fight. Like, I'm not saying that I was gonna, somebody was gonna climb through my window and try and attack me or something, but I kind of had moments where maybe things had happened when I was trying to sleep that really scared me and shook me up, and it took me a while, and I'm still kind of dealing with it. So I think it didn't have to be a human presence that needed to be with me, but it was just another living, breathing thing, I think.
Yeah.
Dan couldn't talk to me, but he was there, and that kind of made up for it.
Yes. And very responsive in some respects, because if you woke up for whatever reason, he was right there. And again, quite a few young people have relayed that, just knowing when they wake up that mum or dad is still there, or the cat's there, or, they have a dog, is just so reassuring. And I don't think parents really appreciate how valuable that source is. But we learned to value Dan hugely, didn't we? Because you had forever been coming into my bed thinking, I just need to be near you. But there was a real marked difference when Dan arrived at our home and just made himself very comfortable on your bed, and obviously did it. But he was very protective, wasn't he? And it just made such a big difference, because I no longer rolled over and found you sleeping in the morning. So yeah, okay, so that is quite interesting, because it is about a presence, isn't it? It's about having something nearby. When you had Dan, did you find that you then were so dependent upon, say, for example, the auditories, or having to have the dim light? I mean, could you have slept in the dark with Dan, or did you still need them?
No, I think I would have still needed light. Auditory, not so much. I kind of changed to watching a TV show before I went to bed, and so it wasn't on while I was in bed. It was just maybe on 10 minutes before I went to bed. But I still needed the light. But instead of having to have my bedroom door open so I could have the outside hall light on, I could start to shut my bedroom door a bit more. So,
Right. And did you happen to notice whether you needed more time to kind of process your day as you got older, or you needed the same amount of time, or you needed less time? What did you happen to notice?
I think I needed less time because I wanted to forget it quicker.
Right. Okay.
I don't want to rethink about that. Get it over and done with. Bye.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we'd process kind of my day over, like, you picking me up from school or dinner, and then I think by the time I was heading to bed, it was like, I'm not thinking about it anymore because it will keep me up. So I'd rather read or maybe message my friends, but kind of when I was getting towards bedtime, I kind of wanted to be left to my own devices, because otherwise somebody's going to mess up my routine or do something that's out of order, and it's just like, please don't do that.
Okay, so that's quite interesting again, isn't it? Because you've identified that there were two opportunities where we were able to help you process, but also the fact, don't wreck my routine. So what kind of routine did you have? And what age range are we talking about now?
I would say between the ages of like 13 and 16.
Okay.
Where, we'd be done for the night. Either you'd go up before me or I'd go up before you, but I was going up to go to bed. Like, even if it's not to sleep straight away, it was to go to my room, because, that's my own space.
And should we at this point acknowledge you always went up with Dan? You never went up on your own? Because you didn't like going upstairs. But you didn't like going upstairs on your own, did you?
No.
How long did that go on for? Do you remember?
God, at least until I was 16, 17.
Yeah. So Dan always went upstairs with you, but you could tolerate going up before or after me as long as you had Dan.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was very loyal like that, and he would always go ahead of me, but like not too far ahead.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind him like going and waiting in my room while like I was going to brush my teeth or wash my face, whatever, because like I didn't
you
need
were
him
upstairs
out.
then.
Yeah. But then he would be waiting for me, so I'd be like, okay, that's fine. You know, I think he was a very good dog because he kind of very early on figured out what my kind of routine was, what my movements were like during the day. So he kind of grasped onto that very quickly. And even if I'd gone to a friend's house or something, I'd gone somewhere without him and you had been with him, he would have been fine with you. But then as soon as he saw me, it was kind of like, okay, my ownership's changed now. It's like,
Yeah.
And I think what kind of helped, I'm not saying that you can pick a vulnerable dog, but I needed him just as much as he needed me. And I think that's what really helped, because it could have been any dog, but because whatever happened, I don't believe in soulmates or whatever, but he kind of was my person when I needed him.
Yes. Yeah.
We went to go pick him up and he jumped on my brand new coat and left a muddy paw print, and they were all going, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, it's okay. And they went, you don't have to take him if you don't want him. And I said, no, he's getting in the car. And you went, you don't have to feel pressure to take him. I went, we're not leaving him, he's coming with us, and he got me through primary school and secondary school. He managed to hold on to get me through that. And I think that kind of helped, especially in my teenage years, because at that age, I wasn't very good at journaling or having a diary. I felt too much pressure to remember to write in every day. And I felt really bad. Some days I would write 7 pages and then the other I would write maybe half a page. So, but I always remember talking to him kind of aloud, and it felt like somebody was listening, but because he can't speak, he wasn't forcing his opinion on me, which I find
Nice.
quite like, sometimes I just need to rant. I don't need somebody to say, oh yes, that person did do a horrible thing to you, or oh, were you maybe in the wrong in this reaction? And it's like, I just need somebody to listen to what I'm saying so it gets out of my head and it's not taking up space anymore.
So he was very much acting in a validating way, wasn't he? Just allowing you to just vent and download, offload. And that's quite an important aspect of it. And I also wonder, whether our parents value that, with allowing their children to talk about their day, because quite often the amount of parents I have who say they always wait till it's bedtime, and there's something really valuable about bedtime, and I think it's more about the fact that it's quieter. They can actually have their slow winding down, but then they're in a more able state to identify, I need to get this out before I settle to sleep, because otherwise I just won't get any sleep. Whereas Dan allowed you to do that venting and that offloading. So that was now a third process for you in a way. But tell me more about the routine, because that's quite interesting as well. I've got a funny feeling that we've got a lot of young people who are on the autistic spectrum who in their own way have a bit of a routine that kind of provides some sort of structure to that processing. I could be wrong, but what do you think?
Definitely. I don't think there's a right or wrong routine. It's kind of how you make it. Yeah. For example, some people might absolutely hate watching TV to kind of unwind for the night, whereas I regularly do that. And then I might come upstairs and I might do a bit of reading and kind of sit in a darker room where it's a little less overwhelming with light. But it still takes me a little while. I think sometimes I might watch an hour or so of TV and then I'll come upstairs and I do an hour or so of reading, but it's in a slightly different environment that is less intense, that is less, and obviously as I get older, now I have like an entire face routine, which kind of eases me from watching TV that's quite stimulating to reading very low, kind of high and not as intense. So it kind of bridges the gap between the two activities and it kind of starts winding me down.
Gotcha.
Because I think if I just came upstairs from the sitting room and went, okay, I'm going to bed now, I would sit there for ages just going, it's not happening. Sleep is not happening. And I find it interesting, especially when I was a kid and everyone was like, oh yeah, I go to bed and I just fall asleep. And I'm sat there going, how do you do that? You know, because I'm sat there going, I sometimes you know, when my phone's dying or something, so I'm having to charge it and I can't quite reach it, I feel like I'm sat there twiddling my thumbs going, okay, well, I'm not falling asleep yet, what do I do? Oh, do I count the marks on my ceiling? What do I do to help me kind of, you know,
Yeah.
my brain can't go quiet. And the older I get, the more I kind of go, okay, my brain can't handle with from being very overstimulated to absolutely nothing. That's not something that helps me. So I've kind of got to find a way round it. But
Mm.
the routines that I found are very kind of independent.
Mm-hmm.
So I can do it if you're here, if you're not here, if I'm away from home, if I'm at home. You know, it's very adaptable to any situation, which I think really helps a lot.
Right. So it's finding a routine that works for you, but you've also identified that it does take time, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It goes through stages, doesn't it? So let's say, for example, because there's been a few instances where you've experienced this. Occasionally, we managed to get you a bursary to go to a private school because the mainstream school couldn't support you with your dyslexia. And then, of course, it took a few years later before we realised it wasn't just dyslexia. But we also then managed to get you, so occasionally you would do a sleepover if I was doing a night duty. And those experiences weren't too great for you. Do you want to kind of convey why they might not have been great for you?
I think they were traumatic. And when I say traumatic, I know some people are probably going to think, oh, what happened? Were you like
Yeah.
physically abused? And it's like, no, nothing like that happened. I just kind of, it was so out of my comfort zone of it wasn't, nothing smelt like home. I was sleeping in a massive bedroom with 10 other girls who all could sleep in the dark. So I'd be sat there going, I can't close my eyes. It's pitch black. That scares me. You know, you could hear teachers still walking around at night, and there was just too much going on.
Yeah.
And I look back at it now and I kind of wish I could just go, why couldn't you be normal and just everyone else was perfectly fine with it? What was wrong with you? You know, and I don't hold a grudge for you for doing it because it what fit best with our lifestyle at the time. But I remember thinking, oh my god, my mum's just left me and abandoned me in this horrible place. Oh my god, why has she done that to me? You know, and I remember I used to cry like every night. And then we had the matron go, I haven't packed your dressing gown to go home this weekend because you've spilt milk on it. And I was like, I don't drink milk. And I realised it was because, unfortunately, my dressing gown had got so snotty because I'd been crying myself regularly to sleep. It was like, oh, that's really not good for me. You know, and the school did have a routine. It was a routine. So it wasn't like I was let loose, but it just wasn't my routine. You know, when you feel like everybody else is handling the routine perfectly fine, you kind of
Yeah.
think something wrong with me because everybody else is dealing with it. You know, and because I was still kind of young at the time, I didn't have the privilege of being able to watch EastEnders that night and then go to bed. It was very much, you've had school, you have your kind of free time, you have dinner, you have a little bit more free time, but depending on the weather, are you allowed inside or outside? And then it was bed. It was very, you're surrounded by loads and loads of people, and then suddenly there's only 2 other girls your age who are going to bed at the same time you are. And we would stay awake for ages until the year 10 girls came in, and that would be a lot later because none of us could really sleep.
So that's quite interesting again, because you're not being given the time to kind of process your, like you were saying about your stages, you kind of do one stage and then you kind of get a bit more relaxed, and then it's the next stage and a bit more relaxed, and then the next stage. It was a kind of quite a severed point. Is this where you had the half a term at the fully funded boarding school rather than the occasional nights? So this is just the occasional nights
Yeah,
of
this was just the
boarding.
occasional nights.
Yeah. So what happened then with the boarding? Because that was a different experience again, wasn't it? And you were the youngest at that school.
I was the only girl my age. So when I went to bed, it was just me. I had nobody to talk to. So when I had the occasional boarding nights and I had two other girls with me, I would take on the role of doing stories to try and get us all to settle down. But then when there was nobody else, I was kind of like, oh, great. And obviously, I didn't have like a phone at the time, but even if I had, we weren't allowed to keep them overnight. So I couldn't like, scroll through YouTube or, read something. I was very dependent on you are going to bed. And they would have like a teaching assistant kind of person who would take me to bed. And literally, I was watched like a hawk. Get into bed. You were in your pajamas. Go to sleep. And it was like, oh, okay. And then you'd have people later coming in, and they would wake you up because you weren't really asleep because you were still kind of thinking of things. And I would get up in like the middle of the night, and I would go sit on the sofa by the window, and I'd just be looking out the window for something to kind of go on because I wasn't tired. I wasn't asleep. And it was quite isolating. It was like I didn't have anyone to talk to kind of wind down. I was very frog marched to bed and then left, and it was like, oh, okay, that's not how it works. But okay.
So for a lot of parents, they might do this where they're kind of, saying it's up to you now. You've got to go to bed now. You've just got to get on with it, and not really understanding that there are several stages in this processing of winding down. And the one thing that I remember you constantly telling me was that you would steal things, not really steal them, but you steal things from home because they would smell of me.
Yeah.
To be able to go back to do this boarding. And obviously it spoke volumes when you said to me, Mummy, how long do I have to do this before we say enough's enough? And we made a pact, didn't we, that you were going to try it for the half term, and if you really, really couldn't do it, you would not have to go back. So that was fine. But it was at that point, wasn't it, that we then in the half term went and got Dan, didn't we? That was a good trade-off, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Don't go back to a free, fully funded boarding school in Surrey and then just get a dog instead.
Okay.
But, good game plan. But that really did speak volumes, didn't it? Because it was more about the processing. We've got a quarter of an hour left. Can I take you back to when you were feeling quite actively suicidal? I know it's not a great area, and please only share what you want to share because this is quite public. But can you remember what it was like with the worries about school, about the GCSEs, relationships? Was that having an impact on your ability to kind of break things down in the stages that you were telling us about, and did you need more of Dan or did you need less of Dan? Did you need more of me? Did you need less of me? What was that time frame looking like?
I mean, unfortunately, when you are feeling that low, you lose interest in things that you enjoyed. So I would open up the book app on my phone and I would look at it and then I'd close it again and then I'd open it again going, why am I not reading? This is what I normally do. And then I was like, I'm not in the mood to do it. Or I start trying to read, but you're not really reading, you're just skimming the words. And I was like, well, I can't do that anymore because I don't enjoy it. And, I think Dan kind of was a calming presence. And unfortunately, he wasn't around when I really got quite bad. And I think it got worse because I didn't have him, somebody who knew what my behaviors were like, but I would just lie awake, and I don't like people feeling like I'm bothering people. So sometimes he was in my room, but he'd be asleep. And I was like, well, I'm not asleep, but I don't want to wake him up because that's just, being mean. He's clearly sleeping. That's fine. So I'd just be kind of sat there going, oh, well, I guess I'm not going to get any sleep tonight. So, there's some
what kind of things were bothering you so that you couldn't sleep?
Sometimes I don't think it was anything. I just think it was the fact that I just felt so low and dark. It just felt like I can't think of anything because there's just this thing kind of hovering over me. But I used to stay up until like 5-6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
You know, and it'd be like, oh well, I saw a really nice sunrise. I guess that kind of makes up for it. And it's like, not really. I'm like running on very little sleep. I'm not feeling my best. And just to go back to what you were saying about some parents who might not understand the different levels of sleep. Obviously, you know, I got my watch which monitors my sleep, and I find it very interesting that people agree you have different levels of sleep. You know, you have light sleep, deep sleep, you have rapid eye movements when you're asleep. And that's okay. Everybody agrees on that, but nobody agrees that you have different levels of settling down.
Yeah.
If it's evidence that you've got it in your sleep, my sleep pattern is not the same every night. Sometimes I have like really vivid dreams which cause me to kind of be awake quite a bit even though I'm asleep. And I think it's just there is different levels. You kind of have moments when you're trying to settle down which lead up to that. I just find it interesting that maybe people don't quite register or recognize that as a thing, but they will quite happily go, oh, I had a really light sleep last night, or oh, I was dead to the world last night. I was so asleep I didn't notice anything. I could have slept through a thunderstorm. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. What I find quite interesting is that now you don't have any pets sleep with you. You barricade yourself in. No pets are coming into your room.
It's only because of cats, because otherwise they come in and they knock things over, and I'm constantly waking up in the middle of the night going, oh, for God's sake, Darcy, you've knocked over my perfume bottle. Or, you know, I can't deal with all that noise. And I would have Jude and Libby with me, but I don't want them to feel like they're shut in. So it's just easier to say, don't come in. you know.
But that is quite interesting because I didn't used to have the dogs come and sleep on my bed. They used to all sleep in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if I had a lie-in on Sunday morning, I'd go and get a cup of tea and then they'd all traipse in after me. But what I do find now is that I have everybody come and sleep with me because nobody's sleeping with you. Everybody comes and sleeps with me. And it is really strange because although I am acutely aware that I wake and I'm a much lighter sleeper, I actually prefer having them around me. And I find that really strange, but I think it's because my day's so intense. I need to somehow just have some sort of grounding normality that, you know, life goes on outside of the M word for me, and that they are that presence, which is a bit strange, isn't it? It's a very different feeling because I don't feel unsafe, but there is that feeling. So there's something definitely there about being autistic and having time to process, but also having that reassurance, isn't there? It's a bit strange, isn't it?
Well, if you want to keep them, you can keep them. I don't mind. I no longer have to work around a dog while I'm trying to sleep. If I want to take up the middle of the bed, it's fine. I don't have to fight with anybody. You know, I think the older I get, you know, I am starting to kind of understand my autism more because you know it's only within the past couple of months, like we covered a couple of episodes ago. I can now confidently say to you when I'm starting to get flustered, just give me space, because the closer, if you come a step closer, you are just going to get into my area, and that's just going to freak me out. So I think because of that, I'm not so dependent on I need somebody beside me when I sleep, because then it's like, no, you're getting on my nerves now. Your energy is too close. Back up. But, you know, I'll quite happily, before I go to bed, you know, I've got the dogs with me in the sitting room. I've got Libby on the sofa. I've got Jude right by my feet. I don't mind that. But it's kind of like, now that I'm older, I'm like, okay, I just need my own space where I don't feel like, it's kind of like hot air balloons in the night sky, isn't it? They all need their own personal space, because otherwise they're just going to bang into each other and potentially cause a fire. You know, I don't you know, I don't mind looking from afar going, oh, what a pretty night sky with all these lovely hot air balloons. They're all intricate and lovely and beautiful. But then I can go to bed and shut my door and go, I'm away from the world now. This is my own space. Everything smells the way I want it to. Everything looks the way I want it to, and I don't mind the dogs coming into my room during the day, but it's just like, at nighttime, I don't want them to feel trapped in. And I have a cat clawing at my door or jumping on the door handle and opening it a little bit and then batting their arm around the door, and it's like, I can't sleep with all this noise going on. It's too much. And then it's
too distracting.
That's the thing, it's starting to get too distracting, where it's like, I can't sleep like that anymore. And as a child, the distraction was good because I didn't feel alone. But now it's kind of like, I don't mind hearing the cats on the landing or the cats downstairs or the dogs, but that's enough for me. I don't need it any closer because that will just keep me up.
So what I find quite interesting is that I obviously spend every day with lots and lots of clients and lots of parents, and I would say dominantly autistic young people do need distractions. They do need a long time to process and to, as you say, in your stages of winding down. But there's also that minority of where some children do not like the light. They have to have it so dark that they cannot see anybody, because otherwise they get scared that a shadow will be somebody, like you said, hiding. So they have to have it in complete darkness to be assured that they will not have any room for exploring that. And then some children are either allergic to fur or just completely intolerant of having pets in the bedroom. So I've got one young person at the moment who adores having their cats on the bed, but when the parent comes to say goodnight, it's like the parent extracts all the cats. Out you go, because they want the assurance that they will not be distracted from going to sleep. So that's quite interesting. And then I've got a lot of young people who need their variety of teddies, but equally there's a very small minority who don't want any soft toys. It doesn't do anything for them and they don't need that. But what I do know is that there are a lot of teenagers who invariably, the older they get, the closer they get to the GCSEs, it feels like it's harder and harder to sleep. So, when you were relaying about, not sleeping till 4 o'clock in the morning, there is that I can't sleep. And sometimes it's because they haven't been able to process and they're still worrying about the next day. Sometimes it's because they genuinely don't feel safe. So it's easier to stay up awake in the dark, knowing that if anything was to go wrong, they could do something about it. But then that then pushes their day so that they're then exhausted and they can't tolerate very much. They have to get some sleep some way, somehow. And then you've got another group of minorities who will be awake for 26 hours and they slowly but surely kind of go to sleep a little bit later, a little bit later, a little bit later. And it's, an ever evolving moon syndrome, So it's really interesting. When you got to the point, because Dan died of dementia, didn't it? It was quite an awful time. What was the change then for you to kind of, what happened then? Because obviously you acquired a puppy, which was not in any way, shape or form going to be like Dan supporting you. So what did you do? How did you cope at that point?
I think I lasted 4 weeks. 4 weeks before I got Jude. Because I couldn't be angry at Dan because he didn't abandon me because he wanted to. He would never have left me out of choice. That's the thing. That's kind of what I had to keep reminding myself. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't my fault. It kind of just, nature happened, and I had to be thankful that he got me through the end of primary school, all the way through the secondary school, through the start of college. But, so he did kind of do a full cycle with me when I needed him the most. But I don't want to compare him to when, like, a parent dies or something, but when it's somebody you've had with you for over 5 years every day and then they're suddenly just gone, I really struggle dealing with that. So unfortunately, I don't think I'd really kind of recovered from his death before I kind of not replaced him, but I needed somebody who was always there. And like, I love Jude. He's a bit of a barn pot, but you know, he's never going to be Dan. And I don't think there will ever be another Dan, because he was one in a million. And again, I don't believe in soulmates. I'm not really religious, but if there isn't a higher power, they sent him to me because they knew I needed him. And
yeah,
he helped me through a very traumatic and hard time, and he helped me kind of grow as a person.
mm.
And I did miss him. I find it as very hard to resonate with certain emotions, but I know I missed him, and I know I'm not quite sure I would say I loved him, but I liked him immensely. And so it was very hard to kind of suddenly feel like, well, I've got nobody now. And obviously we had Felia, but Felia was your dog, whereas Dan, from day one, he was like, you are my person.
Yeah.
And I can't bring that back, but
I think what's interesting is you've identified that he allowed you to vent, he allowed you to be validated, because he would listen, and he didn't respond.
yeah.
But he was very good at seeking out when you needed him to be really close to you, but also when you needed your space. And I guess that's not everybody has a Dan or needs a Dan. They need something else. But what I'm trying to convey is that for you, that was a really powerful experience. And if you get it right, it's so right, isn't it? It's just finding what's right for you. But there is certainly something that our young people with autism need. And let's not forget, Dan had his first stroke and we thought we were going to lose him. And it was not long after that that you were diagnosed with autism and ADHD and PDA. So, in some respect, it helped us understand a lot better. But equally, that reliance on him, was beginning to crumble, because we knew that we were on days. And as it was, he managed to stretch, was it 2 years after that? Did we have him 2 years after that?
Yeah.
But it was knowing that we were on borrowed time really with him. But he did manage to wing it to get you through to the beginning of college, which was just incredible, really. Given what his initial outcome was. Okay, so to try and wrap this up then, what we've learned today about sleep is quite powerful stuff, isn't it? It's the fact that we do know that we need a process time, we need it structured, but also there are stages or phases. Probably better to use the word stages, isn't it? Because we go through phases of what we like: chicken nuggets, goat's milk, chocolate, but this stage is quite valuable in understanding, isn't it? It's not just one stage in getting ready for bed. It's very much about, there is a process. Do you have a routine of going upstairs, getting wound down time with a shower, teeth? Do you get any gym jams? Do you watch TV? Do you watch YouTube? Do you listen to music? Do you listen to audio? Do you have a fan? Do you have soft toys to kind of snuggle up to? Or one of my clients has a blanket, a very soft, fluffy blanket wrapped around her pillow so that she can have it rubbing on her cheek. So there are lots of little foibles, aren't there? But the thing that really is important is having that time to process, but also be validated. And that's the bit I'm picking up that a lot of parents might miss when they are shattered after a full day of caring for their children, or being at work and then coming home and caring. And yet it's such a valuable resource, because what would have happened if you hadn't had any of those? If I'd insisted, you can't come into my bed, if I'd insisted, you're quite capable of going to bed on your own, you don't need Dan, or don't be ridiculous, you don't need a light on, it's sleep time. What do you think it would have been if we'd done it differently?
it would kind of have been, not to sound dramatic, Stockholm syndrome. I would have learned to like it. That is the routine. I might not have, it might have taken me a while to go, this is how we do it, this is what happens, but eventually it probably would have, okay, that's what we do. And luckily you didn't do that, because I feel like every aspect of your life is kind of like your personality. You can't really have that forced on you, because if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. If that's not how you want your life to be, nobody else can force that on you.
Do you think it would have caused you more trauma though?
Probably, because even the idea of you coming into my room now as a 20-year-old and saying, no lights on, no music, I'm taking your phone, that is starting to panic me a little bit. So don't get any ideas. Don't go on turning the internet off, go to bed. That's a little bit heart racing. And the thing is though as well, I think we do kind of need to mention that parents who maybe are tired after work and their children are struggling to sleep, it's not their fault. It's just you haven't found the right way to do it yet to make it easier on everybody. And when you do find it, you'll be like, oh, for God's sake, why didn't I try that before? But until then, nobody is saying you are a bad parent because your child does not simply go to bed straight away. That I don't think any parent, even the ones who have said you're going to bed at this time, have ever had a simple by the book bedtime routine. I don't think that's happened to anyone. So I would just stress that you're not a bad parent because your child's had a slight meltdown before bedtime, or you're not a bad parent because it's taken two of you to try and get them to wear themselves out, so to speak. It's just something that you need to find the right combination for, and when you find it and it fits, you will suddenly realize, oh, okay, we found it now, it's fine. You know?
And it's so much easier, like you
So
say.
much easier.
Yeah, good. We've run out of time, Yasmin. You have been an absolute star. Thank you so much for your insights, because I think that's been hugely helpful for so many of our parents in helping their children. And it isn't easy, is it? But once we found it was really, really good for you. My thanks also to you as our viewers. Thank you so much for listening, tuning in. We will be back next week. I believe we're talking about PDA, are we? Autism and was it ADHD and PDA? I think we were going for it. Anyway, we will let you know. Certainly about PDA. I do remember that bit. It's been lovely to have you, and we will see you soon. Take care for now. Goodbye.